Well, hey there team, welcome back to the channel. Welcome to a little bit of a follow-up review of Firefighting Simulator Ignite. We did a surface level overview video of this earlier in the month, I suppose, where I just had a look at it, single player, you know, the usual format. But I think there's something to be said about revisiting something that you've invested more time into. And according to Steam, I have put 22 and a half hours into this so far. So it's a pretty safe bet to say that I'm a big fan. I'm enjoying it. I'm coming up on clocking it. I actually had a bit of back and forth with the dev after the first video because this game seemed very apparently made for multiplayer and would just absolutely pay dividends and would be best covered that way. However, to be perfectly honest, it's one of those niche indie AA games that sits in a very small spot and it is kind of expensive. $50 Australian, not cheap, right? And it is a hard sell unless you are super hard enthusiasts to get all the boys to pick up copies. So yeah, look, I honestly just went back to the dev and said, listen, if you could give me a couple more keys, I wouldn't mind doing a follow-up video. And after playing this multiplayer as it's supposed to be played and be able to showcase it, right? On top of that, they also released a summer camp DLC, and we played through that. I don't actually have any B-roll of it, but we'll talk about it anyway. But generally speaking, this serves multi-facets in that it's kind of a review, because I think we're one super major mission away from finale, from the end. It's an update talking about multiplayer, and not to bury the lead, this is probably one of the best multiplayer experiences out of everything that I have played this year, hands down, right? And it's been an absolute smorgasbord. I'm also playing things like Ark Raiders and Battlefield in the background, but when the four of us, the 4-stack firefighters, are all online together, we drop everything to bang out a couple more fires. This game is at the top of the pile when the interested parties are all together. So that's the high praise I'm throwing at it. And yeah, and of course, to talk about that DLC a little bit too. So if you missed it, the quick sort of catch up, right? I'm not going to make the first video required reading, but the idea is it's published by Astragon Entertainment. They also did this Seafarer ship sim game, which was okay. Again, very janky, very niche, trying to sit somewhere between arcadey and simulator, but it had me interested. I had a look at this as well from the same publisher. Different developer, Welton Bauer. They've also done a construction sim game. I really should reach out to the dev and chase that up as well, because this same crew I'm playing with is the Roadcraft crew. We all love Roadcraft, and it would seem Construction Sim is a game that flew under my radar. It came out a couple of years ago, and it was essentially a Roadcraft after a fashion in its own way too. So maybe you want to check that out yourself, or wait for a video if I get around to covering it. But ultimately, it's sort of in the title, you fight fires, right? There's a lot of sort of peripheral, questionable stuff, and at times it is a real buggy mess. I don't know if I would have made it this far playing on my own. However, having said that, you know, to talk out of one side of my mouth and then the other, I find the fire concept under the hood and how it behaves to be one of the most interesting antagonistic forces that I've seen in a video game, in an industry that is, you know, dominated by shoot the bad guy, the mercenary, the terrorist in the head, and you win, right? Like, it's all pretty entry-level stuff. Who pushes back, who antagonizes you. But the fire and the simulation and how it behaves and propagates and spreads and heat, and, you know, we can talk about all that, but generally speaking, it's just really clever, really original, and they have framed it so perfectly in essentially the trappings of a Vermintide-like, a Left 4 Dead-like. And this same crew, as we bond, as we play this firefighting game, we get excited about the idea of, let's go back and play Left 4 Dead. Some of these boys are a bit, you know, normie and haven't really played any of these old games before, but my point is it's channeling that spirit for those that know. So if you are someone that plays, I don't know, like Deep Rock Galactic or whatever, co-op, 4-player, shooter type games that require a certain level of coordination once the difficulty ramps a bit, you probably should check this out, because this twists your brain. And like I said, we're well and truly into the end game now, and it's really squeezing us hard. Anyway, I'm talking in platitudes, But like I said, the broad strokes to get out of the way is it's a cool idea conceptually. It works single player. However, it is destined to be played multiplayer. You kind of are cheating yourself out of it. And I would also argue, if you can get it probably on sale, like I know the Deb would love if I was pushing the entry price. I think it's well overpriced, but this entire, like I said, this AA sub-genre is generally quite expensive. And I'm not here to necessarily criticize how they run their studio, but we've mused as the boys that, well, here's an example, right? There's a fully realized fire station. All the different rooms, training rooms, gyms, all that sort of stuff. You can't really do anything in. You can slide down the fire pole, right? If you've got the Dalmatian DLC for $7, you can pat the dog. You can go out the back and do like drills and start them up as scenarios. That's pretty cool. It's a good way to, you know, be up to speed on the fire types and that. But that whole thing is kind of lifeless and pointless, but there's been a lot of work put into it. And, you know, I've mused with the boys, you knock $5 or $10 off the price of this game and you just remove all of this content and make it just straight to instance fires. It's going to sell better, and no one's really going to be that worried. It's going to be a better deal for everyone involved. So, like I said, there's some questionable things in here. It doesn't need to be this expensive, and I wonder if this is more a sort of publisher demand than a developer creative decision. So yeah, get the 4-stack, get it on sale probably, and go in as blind as you can, because the problem is a lot of the missions are very set piece. Like, there are side missions where they shuffle up where victims will be in a fire, but generally speaking, once you play a mission and say fail it, you start to place into memory, you know, where the gas main was to turn off or where the real problems are, and you sort of start to, it's like doing a puzzle a second time sometimes. So generally speaking, I would say don't go playing it single player all on your own and then get the mates in later. Go in with the mates first. Anyway, yeah, it's absolutely fantastic multiplayer. You essentially pick a mission, you can drive out. Same thing, we get a bit of a kick out of it. One of our blokes is the driver, and, you know, he's generally pissed on rum cams and crashes into street signs and gets clipped on the world. And, you know, we kind of, as a group, enjoy the jankiness of the unnecessary drive out. But another thing, knock another $5 off your price game and remove that and just go to the fires. Like, I like it, it's cool, but why do you have a fully rendered fucking city to drive around in for the part of the game that we're not really here for? I don't mean to harp, but it is an example. There's a lot of peripheral stuff in here driving the price up, which I don't think needs to be in here, and it hurts the game. But you get out to the fire and you've got to figure out what sort of fire it is, and, you know, there are different instances of, like electrical fires, right? So there'll be a broken power outlet and it just keeps combusting stuff around it. And the only way to truly stop it is to find the power breaker for that entire house or that floor, depending on if it's a tenement or something like that, and shut that out. You also get like chemical fires, which if you spray them with normal water, it just exacerbates it and makes it worse. So you have foam that you can spray it with as well, which is sort of a more of a blanketing agent. And we've gotten into a really good rhythm. Like for example, we will rock up to a fire. There are 2 trucks that come out that you can run supply and attack lines out of, and you can set each truck to foam or water. So we have team 1, I'm in team 1 I guess, or let's just one team, right? It's not a pissing contest. But me and one of the other blokes, we do search and rescue immediately. As soon as we rock up on the scene, we dismount, we grab Halligan tools and fire axes, or halibuts. One of the blokes called it by accident because he's a fisherman, and that's it. We just, get me the halibut! But if you don't know what either of those things are, essentially in this instance it's a tool for opening doors, and the axe can get through some problems, but generally speaking the Halligan is a smart move, because, you know, if you've got like a metal reinforced security door, you can't axe through that. And we will immediately aggressively run the perimeter run in. We all play on hard mode, which makes the fire propagate way faster, and if you lose any of the victims in the house, you fail immediately. So we start smashing in windows, doors, everything, just trying to navigate the house as aggressively as possible to get all the survivors out. And sometimes you get some pretty epic backdraft cinematic moments. You know, "You go, we go" has become a popular quote for those of us that have watched Backdraft. So you come running through the flames with people over your shoulder. And the team 2, they set supply lines on the trucks. They have to get plugged into hydrants with like beige lines. And then they set attack lines 2 apiece. So we've got 4 lines total out of each of the 2 trucks. And then what happens is they'll start up as a team fighting the fire, one with foam, one with water. And the water sprayer has like nozzle adjustments so you can put mist and that. But generally speaking, this is the best approach we've found because the next part gets into how the fire works. It seems to be a fairly sophisticated game that the game doesn't explain super well. For a long time, we didn't use foam because we got the impression it was only there to fight, like I said before, specific chemical fires. There's also like grease fires and you have to use the hand extinguisher. Like that'll be a stovetop going out of control. It is still kind of gamey, but whatever, we won't dwell on it too much. But, you know, generally speaking, you need to stop each problem reliably. And, you know, I mentioned electrical gas kicking off as well, but you can also have leaking gas lines that are just spraying fire into there. So you have to isolate the gas main too. And just while I'm on it as well, because there's a little bit jumping around, but, you know, there's a bit to cover. You can also have things like flashover events, which is to say, how to put it, because I've done some firefighting in my life, because I come from Navy ship engineering teams, and the engineering teams, we always do DC and firefight. So a big part of my training and career was, you know, that, at least back in the day, though they constantly update and change the way you fight fires. But I know a little is what I'm saying. Probably more than most, but not as much as a fire. But the way it's telegraphed in this game is that you have like a heat level and you can see it in the visual smoke of a room, like this blasting orange you can probably see in the footage. You also get actual smoke, which isn't such a pain for you because you've got your Okabar on, but getting people out, victims out, they won't go through smoke that's too low. But generally speaking, you want to control the heat because once that orange is showing up, it's a visualization of something you would probably feel in real life. That the room is getting so hot at air temperature that everything in this game seems to have a flashover point, like an actual self-combust temperature level, and you have to be careful of that. And so these rooms will often get so superheated that they start exploding on their own without an actual spark source of fire, and rather just from heat itself. This also ties into another fire source, which is backdrafts. Very movie-like in this. You can hear them thumping and pulsing, like they make this really bassy whoa, and you can see black smoke billowing out of the bottom of the door. And if you don't know anything about what a backdraft is, it is essentially a superheated room at flashover point, but it's oxygen starved. It's kind of a closed system that's sealed. So as soon as you breach that room, it's going to rush oxygen in, which is the missing ingredient to make a bomb, basically, in this instance. So if you breach accidentally, because you don't want to do it on purpose, you just do not want to go into a backdraft room in this game. You get the backdraft sound effects from Hollywood, from the movie, like and it just detonates and explodes the dude going through the backdraft. It's very cool. But the answer is to cool all the rooms around it as much as you can, going back to that orange superheated air. You can do boundary cooling in this, and that's, again, going all the way back. That's why you got the multiple hoses on the teams, at least in our system. Foam is really good for, like I said, blanketing and shutting out spot fires, but the water is the real magic to controlling heat. And, you know, you'll have one guy fighting low on the ground of on the floor of a room, and the other guy fighting high, fighting the heat, as it were, right? Once you control that, and then you can change the temperature, and you have that visualization of the orange fading back to normal colors, then you want to start ventilating the room and that sort of stuff. And so, like, you can hear it in my voice, I'm obviously very passionate about this game. I think there's something really cool going on. And I think, like I said, the price point is extreme for normal people, right? Because who's going to buy this, really? We were looking at Steam numbers and that, and it seems to be holding steady at a peak of about 300. It's sort of climbing back up. So, in a way, like, it's got its normal drop-off of any game, but it has held and gained a bit of popularity over time, which is really exciting to see. Like, at the end of the day, as long as they're making enough money to pay everyone and turn a profit and then make their next game, that's all that really matters, right? And for my part, like I said, this has been the most fun multiplayer experience that I've had all year, easily. So I want to put it out there in front of people willing to, I don't know, even pay full price for 4 copies, which is probably a rarity. But again, the people that play this, I don't know, they're probably not necessarily going to be your normie Battlefield players either. It's a tough one. It is a little bit of a tough sell, but again, that's my part in this equation. Anyway, like I said, I've thrown some B-roll in here. The files turn out to be super huge. There's something really magic about this game, and on the higher difficulties, the fire keeps you really honest. We've played some levels where you can see that the developer kind of intended for it to be a real runaway train with the fire, but because we're getting good at it, we control it and we can kind of steal the thunder of the level in a way. But then we've had other ones where you're literally, the air is combusting around you. The ground is spot combusting under your feet and setting you on fire. And we had one particular one, warehouse fires, we struggle the most with because the air just gets so superheated that it is combusting material faster than 4 men on a hose each can actually combat. But there was one point we were in the middle of a warehouse back to back, fighting off the fire with like a giant fuel tank with us that we were trying to just keep cool, keep blanketed so it doesn't self-ignite itself under the heat of the air. And man, there's been some crazy memories, jumping through windows, falling through floors, running over gantries, fighting, being cut off from the team, but fighting through to the absolute last. What a game. Anyway, like I said, I like it. They seem to have updated it a few times. They've added like an emergency mode where you can be at the fire station, get called out, and we all scoff at it. Again, this is an honest review. As much as I love this game, it's my favorite multiplayer game this year. It's still got all this dumb stuff in there that pushes the price up unnecessarily. So maybe they're going to do more with the emergency call out, but it's not like we're hanging around the fire station where there's literally nothing to do waiting to be called out. It's a gimmick, and I don't really know why they're adding stuff like that. We played the summer camp DLC, like I said. It was 2 missions. It was cool. It was before we really started using foam as a blanketing agent, honestly, as aggressively as we do now. And we struggled with trees, of all things. Trees have been the bane of our existence because they have some sort of weird invisible texture packet, and it's just really hard to get water in between the branches. Like it's not one-to-one lining up as a model. So again, as cool as those summer camp missions were out in the bush and fighting these individual cabins, it was a cool twist on the usual formula of tenements and residential houses. A lot of it was actually quite frustrating because of, like I said trees and the models just being a pain in the ass to fight fire with. But all in all, there you go. There's an honest review, right? I love it. I love it to death. I recommend it to anyone that has a tight group of friends that actually want a bit of a sweaty challenge, but at the same time, know that it's got a lot of peripheral, janky stuff, which probably opens up another conversation for another day. Like, if a game delivers such a fun experience for you and the group, does it really matter so much if it's broken? Like, on one hand, you should say yes, there should be a minimum quality of product for everything, right? We probably shouldn't accept jank full stop, but at the same time, we won't stop playing this until we've clocked it because we love it so much. And if a couple of days go by without us playing a few missions at night, we all get antsy. So that's got to be the hallmark of some magic somewhere. Anyway, look, I've made my point. I've explained the game as best as I can. I don't mean to waffle beyond that, so I think we'll just wrap it up there. Team, might just leave it there for the time being, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.